Hello, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's HR Huddle with Jennifer and I. We are excited to be with you here today. We thought we would do something a little different. We've done it maybe a couple times in the HR Huddle, but talk about maybe a personal development topic and something that we have been talking to our coachees about, we talk to each other about, we talk to ourselves, and that is how do we get unhooked. And it could be unhooked from circumstances, which there are a lot right now, or it could be getting unhooked from somebody's comments or email or in a meeting. It could be getting unhooked from our clients or just the volume and pressure. And so we just thought we would talk about, maybe some of those things that are hooking us. And then what are some strategies and approaches that we could use to get unhooked? And then hopefully you could bring these back to your team and share some of these ideas, for with the team. You might see somebody you could go have a personal coaching, conversation with, but also you could bring it back, in a team environment or, a lunch and learn or whatever, and talk about some of these ideas too. So that's what we thought we would talk about today. And I think I'll just, start, Jen, and you can add to like, why is this important? Maybe we start there. And I think we have a philosophy or saying that we're 100% responsible for the happiness in our life and choosing happiness. And I subscribe to it's Notes from the Universe. And one of them recently was,
Today's, I think.
Was it today's?
I think so. Today or yesterday, but yes.
It was probably today's because I don't do it on the weekends, and that's how long of a day this Monday has been. But it was, it was choose happiness, because that's all there is to choose happiness. And I'm paraphrasing, but there is nothing that's going to make us happy. Yes, I can have feelings of happiness, when my dog greets me, or, I was sharing with Jen before we got on, I was with my mom and she linked, her fingers with me yesterday and we were walking. And yes, that brings like joy or happiness, but I can choose to be happy and be grateful, for my life. Well, now, how do you do that when somebody cuts you off on the road? Or what do you do that when you get a snarky email, or somebody, stomps all over you in a meeting, or we find out some negative financial information, or somebody quits, or the list goes on, right?
You don't get the promotion that you thought you deserved, or
yes, exactly.
your client doesn't choose to engage you, or whatever. So,
yeah. So we thought that would be an important skill for us to develop. And it's really a muscle and for us to pay attention to so that we can do it and notice when we're hooked. That's the first thing. And then what are some strategies to get unhooked? So anything from a setup or why or anything like that, Jen, that you would add before we get into some of that strategy?
Well, I think what it is that, we have powerful emotions that wash over us. They are, and so it's emotionally unhooked that Tamara and I are talking about. And it's, we get like hurt, and we get mad, and we get disappointed, and we get embarrassed, and we get like sad, or I don't know, offended, or hopeless. I mean, there's 1,000 of these emotions that come over us, and we can choose to act on those emotions, or for some of us be paralyzed by them, not act.
Right.
So it's not always that I'm acting out of the emotion, but sometimes I am stuck because of it. And how can you have the power to choose how you're going to behave, even with a powerful emotion on top of you? And that's where really emotionally intelligent, self-managing leaders work to build a muscle, is how can I be really like hit by the truck of emotion and not react in a way that later I'm going to regret, either by being mean or being, assumptive or something, or by avoiding, or like spreading rumors, or who knows what, whatever the reaction that we'd be ashamed of, how can we avoid it? So I think that's really what we're talking about, giving you the power to unhook yourself before you act, or before you enact.
Right. And I think that's the first step, is to notice, that I'm reacting right now. And often is a physical reaction. Like we can feel our chest tighten, or my fist clench, or my teeth grate, or my eyebrows go down. And also there's something that we often say to ourselves, our inner dialogue goes off, like, are you kidding? Are you for real right now? I could say a whole bunch of other things, not positive, negative. And then to stop and go, okay, hold on. I am now just reacting to that. And I'm reacting usually like it's the truth, like it's the only view of the situation instead of it's a view. And we talk a lot about having different interpretations of situations. And that's what we want to do, is identify, okay, usually my negative interpretations go off. And that's what were you thinking, and the negative thoughts that we have. So I didn't get the promotion. My negative interpretations could be, they don't value me. They are playing favorites for Sally. They are, only choosing men, or they didn't see all the work that I did and all the business that I brought in. And then I took all these clients from Adam, who's retiring. Like, I could have this whole list, right? And then I react to all that story. We would call that story because that's what it is. And we're telling ourselves this story, instead of saying those are some possible views or some possible interpretations. And once we see that, then we can stop and go, oh, that's not necessarily the truth. And then I could generate some other possible views, or what we might call hopeful interpretations. So, maybe they didn't see all the work that I'm doing. Maybe the committee didn't know that Adam's clients all got transferred to me because we're not doing that centrally. Or, maybe they have some special reason that Sally got promoted instead of me because there's a special niche that she runs and it's needed in the audit department that I don't have. There could be a whole list of reasons. That at least gets us to maybe even.
Yeah.
Centered. We would call that centered, right, Jen? I mean,
Yes.
I think that's what we would say is like, let's at least get centered. So I'm not boiling hot, mad, hurt, sad, crying, all that stuff over there. So I can come at least over here.
For sure. And Tamara, I think, the number one thing, you have adrenaline and cortisol and all this other stuff kind of firing off in your body, and it, makes you maybe hotter to the collar, or breathe quickly, or your heart races, or whatever it is, you'll know it. And then you have to stop and say, I'm in reaction mode now. My body is reacting. And so I'm going to a different part of my brain, the part that the reptilian part of my brain, that's going to react in ways that are not going to make me proud later. They aren't strategic. They aren't inspiring. They probably won't solve my problem. They could make my problem worse, so I just am going to stop and recognize that I'm upset about something. And then I'm going to try as best I can to identify what the issue is, and then what my story is about it. And we would, this is pretty easy to do, especially if this thing you're upset about is like a persistent, ongoing complaint that you've had for some time. The story is like embellished, and you've told it many times to many people. So, but story is gory. Okay, story is awful, and we have to pay attention to this. So this is something a lot of people don't know, but because they don't realize that they're caught up in their story. Okay, like a fairy tale or something, like you're telling a bedtime story to a kid. Every person listening to this, and Tamara and I, and Caroline, who's backing us up on this, we all have stories. And we tell these stories, and they're stories from our past, and, stories of challenges in childhood, or stories in, past sports failures or successes, or we have stories about prior employers, and we have stories about the current one, and stories about, fables, like, tall tales about clients. And, so all these different stories that we tell, they are just that. They are stories. They are not necessarily perfectly the truth. They are not perfectly factual. They are usually embellished with adjectives and stretching embellishments and new parts of the story. They're also embellished with like perceived slights, interpreted meanings and intentions. They are not the truth.
We look for evidence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, well, once we've fabricated the story, then we're constantly, Tamara raises an eyebrow at me across the table in a meeting, and somebody says, look at Tamara's eyebrow, and they make that mean something about some story that they have, right? So, and we all have an inner dialogue, and it's telling us stories, and the inner dialogue usually is telling us unempowering stories. It's making us lack confidence. It's making us wrong for things. It's telling us people don't like us or whatever it's doing. Okay. So we all have that going on, and we have to choose how much of the story we're going to tell and how much of it we're going to live in and how much we're going to believe. And there is this saying in leadership, and it's almost trite, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I'm gonna write your own story. And it's not write your own dramatic, terrible story where you are the victim or something. Write your own 100% responsible story where things turn out okay. And you get to choose that by getting unhooked. And the best way to do that is by identifying the story and then starting to list what are my ugly interpretations of the story and what are my hopeful ones. So Tamara, I'm going to say, let's just you and I make up a story right now that we've heard maybe from coaches that, my boss will never fire any clients. Okay. And I am just hopeless and things will never change. That's the story. And I can choose then to kind of look at that story and say, well, what is the real story? Okay. The story is so far we haven't fired any clients. I can see there is resistance to firing clients, but maybe we could fire clients in the future. It is possible. It's not impossible. It's possible. So, one way of getting unhooked is just to kind of say to yourself, well, why is that person resisting up to this point? And how could I interpret their resistance? So the first thing we have people do when we help them get unhooked is we say, let's interpret the other person's behavior. And you storyteller, you get to interpret it ugly. So what are all the ugly interpretations? So Tamara, let's generate some ugly interpretations of the resistor who up to this point has not fired any clients. And I fear they will never do it. So what are the ugly interpretations of that person?
They're selfish and they only care about their book of business, and that's what they get paid on. They don't care about my time or my energy or my personal time and think I can just work 24/7. I was going to say they don't see it, but that would be a hopeful interpretation.
They're too wimpy.
Yeah. Yeah. They let the clients boss them around instead of managing the clients.
They value the clients over me. They're in a permanent state of denial. They're going to work us to death till they retire, blah, 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 right? All that. And that's juicy story, incidentally. That story is fun at happy hour. Let's grind the axe. Let's grind the axe about the boss, or whatever, about whoever it is that we are upset about. When you can tell stories like that, it is kind of dramatic. And there is this feeling of like, I'm the underdog and they're the bad guy or something. But in truth, it doesn't solve any problems. And it just creates this, like, I hate my circumstances.
Well, and you're the victim. Yeah. It's like, I'm the victim to him. And I'm powerless to him or her. You were using him. So yes, but yes, him or her or them, because it could be about the partner group or the executive committee or whatever. But yes, that's, we just get, and then that's part of our story, by the way. I'm the victim and I get support that I'm the victim because I'm telling that story and everybody else agrees with me about how much I am the victim. And that's one of the ways we keep it alive, by the way, is because we get people to agree with us that it is a true story. And yes, poor Tamara, that you have to work under him or her or them.
Now, there's a gross definition of best friend, and my best friend is someone who hates the same people I do. And so, and what that really is my real friends are the people who sit around and let me run all my negative stories, and they talk about people I don't like, and they go, yeah, I know, he's awful. That's a true friend, right? Well, that's not really a true friend. That's somebody who's down there in the ditch with you, letting you live in the ditch instead of living a powerful, leaderly way where you're unhooked from your story and you're driving change. So those people are not good for you. They are triangulation buddies, complaining buddies. And so anyway, to get unhooked, it's easy to list all the ugly. Tamara, you did it flawlessly. You could have gone on, you had like 3 or 4 off the top of your head. So what are some hopeful interpretations? Let's you and I generate some hopeful interpretations, because it's not enough just to generate ugly. That's easy. That's what keeps you hooked. And that's what causes you to react poorly or not react and just complain. So instead, to get to center, as Tamara suggested earlier, we've got to generate some hopeful possibilities of the other party's behavior and some hopeful possibilities of what we might cause. So what would you come up with there, Tam?
Well, I think they care about their clients, and they have deep relationships, longstanding relationships with their clients. They don't see or don't notice or don't get maybe the volume that I have on my plate. They don't have the skills or the confidence or know what to say to help, fire those clients. They are worried about the bottom line, if they and how we're going to pay salaries and keep the lights on and do technology and do all of those things if we fire clients. So they're worried about that. Those are 4 off the top of my head.
Yes. And, and they don't really realize how dire it is. I haven't, I've been complaining at the happy hour and at the coffee bar or over video. Maybe we're all remote these days and they can't see it over here. And I haven't taken it to them. I haven't gone palms up and said, hey, I need a reduction in workload and we're going to have to reduce client load or move some of these clients somewhere else. And so anyway, those are all hopeful. And when I hear those hopeful possibilities, I can have empathy and compassion for the other party. What it starts to do, and I can see places where I could take action and possibly shift the story. Hopeful interpretations allow me to be 100% responsible. They also allow me to take the black cape and hat off the bad guy in the story and put like a gray one on or something. And I'll put a gray one on too. I no longer will wear the white hat and be the Lone Ranger or whatever. I'm not the good guy in the story because I could take action here. I am responsible. And so, if somebody sends me an email and in it they, or maybe they copy me on an email where they talk bad about me to somebody else, that could hurt my feelings, man. That could really hurt me. And I could be like, wow, they're really awful and they're mean to me. And I can't believe how rude they were. And I could just say all that stuff and be like really upset and hurt. I could cry, I could call Tamara up and be like, I just got an email. They didn't mean to copy me. And, I could just be completely like broken by that. Or I could be like, well, they didn't mean to copy me, but I've done something to cause these feelings that they're expressing. And maybe the universe is giving me a chance to clean it up by causing this happy accident, which is also a little painful, but I'm a leader and I'm an adult and I'm 100% responsible, and they're expressing things that they're upset about. And now I know what they are, and I could go in there and apologize. I could clean up my mess. I could do something about it. Calling Tamara to cry about it might not actually change the circumstances. So
unless I go and say something to them.
Which wouldn't help either. That would be super weird. Now we're playing the game called,
Right, exactly. That doesn't solve
my messes for me, which is okay. I mean, sometimes we have to do that for our staff. And one of the reasons we wanted to cover this today in an HR huddle is because we know HR is the place,
they come with your stories.
Yeah, they cough up their fur balls of their complaints and concerns and issues. and they're hooked. They're steeped in the absolute truth of the story, and they're completely hooked. And they're so convicted to it that the hopelessness that creates, and the indignation and the righteousness and all that stuff, none of it helps resolve any issues in work or in leadership. And so part of our job in talent management is to help our people and our partners and our fellow operational leaders to get unhooked emotionally, to get to center so they can see both sides of the coin, see places they could be responsible, and let go of the story and start figuring out how to take action to change it.
And you might see as an HR leader in this conversation stories you're hooked by. Maybe they cut the training budget, and we could get right in there with you and say, we agree how upset you are. And yep, Jen's head's going to shake right off. But that does not help the situation. We have to stop and say, what are the possible reasons they're doing it? And what are the possible things, the hopeful interpretations? They're trying to manage budget. They're, trying to figure out, other new creative ways. And then I can say, what did I not do or not provide? Where could I be responsible, but they're cutting that budget that I'm responsible for? And what education could I go give? What kind of statistics could I go show? What kind of, talent, information could I provide? Where could I get creative about how we provide learning programs? I don't know what the answer is, but you can at least then start to see some possibilities because you got unhooked from all that story. And, it's not productive to stay there. We're not invalidating the initial feelings that come up. We're emotional creatures. So that's all fine. It's when you stay there and you bring other people into it that we want to stop. It's not productive. It's time wasting. It's energy draining. And I don't know about you, but we got enough going on that we don't need to add to that. So,
yeah. And last thing on this is just when the story's so bad that we're really unhappy and it's affecting us at home and it's affecting our sleep and it's affecting our getting up in the morning and it's burning us out about the job or whatever it is, whatever that story is that's dragging you down, that's a story that has to get cleaned up. It has to shift. You own shifting it. And it's not okay to just persist in it and act like it's your obligation to live inside of it forever. It's not. And so, stopping, getting centered, having conversations around it with the people who can affect it, figuring out your own personal responsibility, all critical. And then if the firm doesn't shift after you've done the right things to articulate the asks and the needs and the shifts that you need to see, if the firm won't make those changes or can't make the shifts and you're going to perpetuate in this negative environment, then you can't stay there. Right. But just living in the story and persisting in it, it's just such a sad place and an unnecessary place to be. And Tamara and I and our team of coaches see it a lot. And we spend a lot of time coaching people out of that.
Right.
And we've
written about it too, Jen. We've got a couple of blogs, and Caroline, maybe we include, another possible view talks about the interpretations. I know Renee's written about, getting unhooked from my story. Mm-hmm. So we talk about this a lot. And that's why, we thought, gosh, maybe we should talk about it here because we haven't talked about it here. So it has been good to be with you. I think we're on hiatus next week. So we are going to take a break just because of our travel conflicts, but we will be back again in a couple weeks. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you again for being with us. If you have ideas for topics, please let us know. We are interested as we plan our fall. So have a good week otherwise, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thanks all.